I'm not going to preach. I'm not going to preach this whole thing. Watch this. Be blessed. Play that audio clip that I wanted to play during this message today, that sound bite, if you will. If I could have preached today, I was going to preach the story of the fourth nail. The story of the fourth nail. That fourth nail, because while you taught us so eloquently and excellently about those two thieves, we spend a lot of time in the church as believers reminiscing about the power of the cross and the nail that was put into his left hand and the nail that was put into his right hand and the nail that was put into his feet as they crossed that right leg over the left and they drove that nail or that spike into his feet. But there was a fourth nail. There was a fourth nail. That fourth nail was placed into the same cross, but not into the same flesh. It was placed into a scripture that was written in Hebrew and Latin and Greek. And it was from the accusation that had been made against him. And Pilate said it would be placed over his head. It would be that he was the king of the Jews. The first three nails were for his flesh. The fourth was for everybody else's. Because there at the cross and from that day until now, Brother Brzezinski, there were people in the crowd. Read it in the text of Matthew 27. Go to the book of Luke. Go to the book of Mark. Go to the book of John chapter 19, where even they did say those words. They said, we want that to say, he said he was the King of Jews. And he said, I'm not changing what it says. There were people, read it in Matthew 27, that were wagging their heads, Brother Hall. There were people there that were wagging their heads saying, he's not the King of the Jews. But right there in the same crowd were people that are saying, he is the King of the Jews. And I might take time and preach it some other, but I don't know that I'll ever get another chance to preach it. So I'm going to tell you what I was going to preach. He's more than just the King of the Jews, but he's the King of the Jews and the Gentiles. And he's more, I want you to hear me today, he was more than the king of the 12 disciples. He was the king of the 120. He became the king of the 3,000. He became the king of the 5,000. He became the king of the millions from that day to now. And I understand in our culture right now, that the first three nails let him walk into Thomas and say, you can touch my hands. I know that. And there was a spear, you can touch my side. But you go ahead, you touch my hands. The first three nails were for me, but the fourth nail was for you. Either I'm the king of your life or I'm not the king of your life. Either I'm the king or I'm not the king. I want to go on record in Indianapolis today and say he is the king. He is the king. He is the king. He is the king. All hail King Jesus. All hail King Jesus. We rise to our feet on a Sunday morning and we say, all hail King Jesus. All hail King Jesus. And there was mockery in the mob. But even while some of the mob was mocking, others of them, even among the centurions, were coming to a recognition. This was not just any prophet. This was not just any rabbi. This was not just any preacher. Some say that thou art Jeremiah, others Elijah, John the Baptist, or one of the... No, but thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. What Peter had declared was accurate. And while some were mocking, others were in amazement. And how many know that 3 days later, I tell you why we rise to our feet on a Sunday morning in the heat of June. We rise to our feet because he rose up out of the tomb. We rise to our feet. I stood here yesterday for a wedding. In fact, I was actually seated until the bride walked into the room. When the bride walked into the room and the groom went, ooh. Everybody in the building looked at him, looked at her, looked at him, looked at her. But when the bride walked in, the body stood up, because there is something about this coming together. I tell you, the groom was standing first, and the great bridegroom has already arisen from the tomb. But it's time for the bride to, it's time for the church to stand up in the honor of the, we're not just any church, we're a part of the bride. Now listen, 3 nails for his flesh, but I'm going to tell everybody in this room, the 4th nail is for you. The 4th nail is for you. Because the 4th nail, Isaiah 22, would talk about a sure place, that nail in a sure place, talking about Eliakim speaking over him, this son that would be a sure place, and there would be a cutting down of that which was before, because he had found that grace in the sight of the Lord. I'll tell you why, because he honored the Lord, and it would be a type and a shadow that was placed here in Isaiah 22. Read about it later, verse 23 and on, about Eliakim rising and becoming that nail in a sure place. I wanted to even preach about it last week and didn't know why I couldn't, but I'm preaching about it today, because I'm preaching about that 4th nail. I'm preaching about something greater than Eliakim. I'm preaching about someone greater than Isaiah. I'm preaching about someone greater than any other man that's ever put their feet in sandals. He was Jesus. Yes, he was the King of the Jews, but he is the King of me. Turn to 2 or 3 or 4 people and ask them, is he your king? Is he your king? Ask him, is he your king? Because if he's your king, he determines how I worship. He determines how I praise. He determines how I live. He determines how I give. Oh, yeah. I'm done. And then we're just going to praise God. And anybody who wants to shout and dance and jump, we're just going to stay and do that for a while. And anybody that wants to go eat, you're good. Adios. Or dance a little while and then go when you want to. But here's the story of the 4th nail. Play that sound one more time, that sound bite, that hammering in. I want you to play it again. They thought with that 4th nail that they were going to cause ridicule. But actually what they forever fastened in the history of mankind is he's the king. He's the king. Can I tell you, he's king enough that even those who meant him harm could do nothing but set up the victory. What about when they pull the inscription down? You want to know the number 1 book that every mocker's been trying to get rid of since? Is that Pastor Bland? Sorry, I don't want to embarrass you. That's an incredible preacher, pastor from St. Louis, one of my dear friends right there. Pastor Bland, I just drew great strength seeing you in the crowd. You believe this as much as I do, don't you? Here's why. In St. Louis, I'm telling you, they're building such a revival church in St. Louis. Had to open up the gymnasium to put seats. I wouldn't embarrass them, but it's so that everybody in Florissant and Hazelwood and Indianapolis and every other city and county and country. Where's Sister Ryan? Come here. Brother and Sister Tipsword, come down here. I know we prayed for you, but come here. Come here. I've been to Africa. I've been in places in Africa we were scared to go. There's parts of Africa where they still believe in voodoo and cannibalism. I don't want to be. But you know what? I told them this in the altar earlier. I'm going to tell it to you in front of everybody right now. Everyone deserves to know that he is the King of Kings and he is the Lord of Lords. Play that sound one more time before we dance a little bit. Play that one more time. I want you to listen to it. It might have been nailed into the cross, but it's also been nailed into my life. He is the King. He is. He is. He is. He that cometh to God must believe that he is. And he is a rewarder. He is a rewarder.